Okay, so welcome to this week's episode of the Pipe and People podcast. And today I consider myself very lucky to be joined by Ben Cockrell. Ben, thank you very much for being here with us today.
Thank you.
You are the head of strategy and data for Ekino. I guess to kind of frame the chat we're going to have today, and why we thought it was a good idea to get together and collaborate on a podcast. When we first spoke, I think we agreed quite an interesting topic to discuss could be that of data transformation and the role that it's playing in marketing these days, and specifically how using data transformation, to revolutionize customer experience. I think it is a very interesting area because customer experience, I suppose, is quite a hot topic. There's many buzzwords out there, that we're all kind of used to hearing now, like omnichannel communications and real-time interaction management and all these things. But as we discussed, it kind of really feels like we're on the precipice now of being able to create kind of very highly personalized ways of companies to and brands to interact and communicate with their customers. And whilst data transformation is obviously very much at the heart of customer experience, it's obviously just one area of lots of different areas that all need to work kind of symbiotically in unison. So yeah, in this session we thought it'd be great for you to share some of your personal experiences, having driven data and customer experience transformation projects for some multi-billion-dollar businesses. I guess on that note, it'd be really nice if you could just start by giving us a bit of your background and your sort of career history to date, if you'd be so kind.
Yes, of course. Thanks, guys. So my background started in IT, at the very beginning, I was, working for a marketing agency, helping to fix people's laptops and computers and keep the servers running. And what followed was really a very accidental journey through data-driven marketing. So from initially account management roles, working on BT, helping them with data-driven CRM and data analytics across their customer base, through to project management for companies like Aviva, working with Ogilvy One, through to leading a data planning department at an FMCG shopper marketing agency, through to building and running the implementation of a CRM, real-time CRM platform for Dyson, then onto media roles, onto data strategy roles, helping British Airways with their omnichannel transformation. And then to my role at Ekino, which has been, so Ekino is part of the Havas Group. And my role at Ekino has really been to build from scratch a new data consultancy offering, really focused around data transformation and omnichannel customer experience transformation. And it's a fantastic time to be working in this space. There is so much that is now coming together from a people, from a data, from a technology point of view, that it's a really exciting and interesting time. Absolutely.
And what a kind of pedigree and fantastic background you've got. So I think certainly somebody can share some real insight into this particular area. So thanks again for being here with us today. So I guess when you kind of think about customer experience, we sort of talk about all these buzzwords. Just sort of talk us through what do we actually mean by omnichannel or real-time interaction management? What do they mean to you?
So, I think if we start from our own experience as consumers or as customers in the B2B world, we all have quite disjointed experiences across different channels, interaction channels such as what we receive in email, what we see on a website, the discussions that we might have to have with a contact center, and what gets advertised in a kind of digital paid media standpoint. And that's been, especially the case I found as a consumer of, telecoms and utilities products, where things are very, very fragmented. And the size of that problem really depends upon the type of business, right? Because if you're, buying a telecoms product or, broadband or something like that, and you have a bad experience, the importance of all of the different interaction channels in that service relationship is really, really important, right? But if it's an FMCG brand and you're selling shampoo or toothpaste or something like that, then the kind of need for these systems and processes to drive a consistent customer experience across all channels is not so big. And of course, at the same time, you also have brands like Amazon that have an incredibly powerful platform, right? So you're using Amazon, everything kind of works off Amazon.com or Amazon.co.uk, and it all drives you to that platform. And although they do need to do paid media advertising and they do need to do a little bit in other channels, it's really about the platform and that one place. But for many brands, they are acting with their consumers or customers across lots and lots of different channels. And so it's becoming increasingly important to have a more consistent message across those channels in order to drive a better customer experience, greater customer preference and loyalty, and conversion and revenue. So, for example, we're doing a lot of work with $5 billion revenue US healthcare insurance provider at the moment. They spend millions of dollars on marketing, and they've got an experience which goes from paid media to a website to conversion through the call center. And so being able to have that consistency end to end is really, really important to them. Another example of a brand that we're working with is Maersk, who are the world's largest ocean freight company, almost $40 billion of revenue. And they have phenomenal complexity within their business. They've got customers that range from owner operators that are shipping their own products around the world through to the world's largest corporations that have shipping departments and logistics departments that are spread across international boundaries. There is the flow of products and customs and all of these things. It's incredibly complex. And at any given time, they might have 500 different things that they could talk to their customers about. And it's really, really important to use their data to talk to the right customers in the right way and to get that edge over their competitors. So really these kind of concepts of omnichannel marketing and real-time interaction management, they've evolved out of, I guess, primarily the CRM world. For many, many years, there has been the world of CRM emails, of DM, and calendar plans that would allow marketeers to get the messages across in the way they wanted to throughout the year, given what was happening with their products and other things in the market. And that has evolved over time to the more kind of real-time world that we live in. And really the idea behind omnichannel is that rather than just coordinating a message across a few different customer touch points, you start to get every single touch point consistent in a way that allows you to get that consistent message across to the consumer. So, you've got your email, your website for retail businesses, your in-store experience, your contact center, your mobile app, all of these other different things should all be understanding you as an individual and speaking to you as an individual. And real-time interaction management takes that one step further. That's about really taking all of the data that you can capture from your customer relationship, from all of the different channels, and bringing that together and allow you to make decisions in real time around the conversation you should have with the customer, the topics, the messages, the offers, the creative, and that works across every single touch point. So, if you have an experience on the website, you're looking at a given bit of content for a brand, or look at something in an email, and then you're speaking to the contact service center. All of that understanding about how you've interacted with that brand should all be reflected in the next interaction you have with them, regardless of the touch point that happens through.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's fascinating. I mean, I genuinely really fascinated about how, as a consumer, I mean, as an example, I've recently just gone through changing my broadband service provider, and and I won't name names, but in certain instances, I've been dealing with different parts of the business and different, obviously, like I say, different touch points in terms of my customer experience on this journey. And it's amazing how at sort of various stages of this journey, it almost feels like certain parts of the business have no other idea what the other parts of the business are doing. And it's a very live and tangible thing, isn't it, in terms of how we identify with brands and how we create a reputation in our mind, across all these sort of different touch points about a brand, and its kind of service and the quality of it. And I guess sort of like I say, omnichannel marketing with certainly with these bigger, like I say, the likes of Maersk and sort of big organizations have incredible complexity. It must be such an important
Absolutely
thing for them.
I can mirror that experience. Again, I can make some guesses, but I won't mention any names either. But within the telecom space, I think we've all had that experience of being bounced from contact center to contact center, just within one channel, right? Going from team to team to team to try and resolve an issue. And there's been instances where I've been bounced around about 3 or 4 teams and then back to the first one again. And so, I think sometimes we forget the legacy and the complexity that has been built up on the brand side. I used to work with a telecoms provider years ago that, this is probably in about 2005, but they still had systems from the 1970s. They had mainframes that were running part of their offering. And some of these, big corporations, they do acquisitions, they launch new products, and they build up this incredible kind of complexity that is a real minefield for them, in terms of building that great customer experience.
Absolutely, yeah. It must be a hugely complex challenge, and I guess sort of bring it to the front and center of data and kind of how this plays a part of it. What role do you see that data can play within this challenge?
So clearly data is absolutely front and center to this challenge, and most organizations are absolutely drowning in data. They've got data that is being created at every system, every customer interaction point, and they're really struggling to get the basics out of that. A lot of organizations struggle with basic performance reporting, being able to accurately report on the performance of marketing campaigns, for example, being able to attribute the impact of different channels or activities on revenue. They struggle with customer insight, really understanding that complete picture of what's going on with the customer. And they struggle to figure out what is the next best product that they should be talking about with the customer, or the next best topic of conversation. And that really comes about because of a fragmentation of data. You've got data across different platforms. In the marketing world, you also have providers, marketing advertising providers like Google or Facebook. They have their own walled garden. You can't just join up and track this one individual as they go across all of different touch points. But there's also a lot of fragmentation that comes from the legacy systems, what's been built up over the years, how the customer record works, all of the workarounds that have been built in. And then there's a lot of fragmentation about how the organization tackles these challenges, right? So you'll have your IT department, and they will obviously be responsible for kind of platforms procurement. You've got, your business intelligence, who are getting a lot of the data insights. You've got marketing and sales that are becoming increasingly powerful within organizations. Product owners, you have those that deal with the service. You've got commercial stakeholders. They all speak slightly different languages, right? And, a lot of the time where organizations fall down with their customer experience transformation, or they fall down with their data transformation, is around getting all of those different elements to work together in concert. So you've got to work across all of those different areas simultaneously. And really, a lot of organizations are not necessarily geared up for that. And that's why there's a lot that happens in the consultancy and the agency space to try and help organizations address those challenges.
Yes, absolutely. It's very interesting, actually, how you mentioned the different departments within technology, and certainly with any business challenge, I think, rightly or wrongly, very often people think, well, actually, we just need the right piece of software to solve this problem. Like I say, a lot of this is born out of kind of CRM, but a lot of people think, right, we just need to unify an experience through a particular platform or employing a particular technology. But yeah, what role do you foresee that technology plays within all this, and and how much of it is actually down to the technology alone?
So alongside data, technology is really one of the other key components of solving this customer experience challenge. And there are some fantastic products out there. There's a lot that Salesforce are doing, Pega, Adobe, Thunderhead. There are loads of different providers. And in fact, as a slight aside, I don't know if you followed this, but there's the Martech, what's called the Martech 5000. It was created by a guy, I think, called Scott Brinker, who is his chief marketing technologist blog. And over the last 5 or 6 years, he's track the number of MarTech providers out there. And I think at the beginning, there was like a couple of hundred, and now there's about 8,000 of them. And so the technology itself is a minefield. It's always changing. There's lots of acquisitions going on. There's lots of the bigger providers that go and buy whole businesses and integrate them into their platform, but it becomes a bit of a kind of Frankenstein's monster in the process, and doesn't necessarily, the reality of how smoothly the products work doesn't necessarily match the marketing or sales of those products. But I think there's an attitude within a lot of organizations that you go and buy the right platform and that will solve your problems. And what that doesn't really do is it doesn't address how that platform is configured ultimately to deliver in the end goals. You might configure the platform in a way and start using it, but over time, as your requirements change, your platform's not fit for purpose, but you're so invested in it and you spend so much time working with it, it's really, really hard to change. That's a big problem. I think there's also just this attitude that these problems can be solved by buying a piece of technology, but really, of course, you've got to buy the right piece of technology, but it's way more complicated than that. There's so many other components that you need to look at. I've been doing a lot of work from the client work that we've done in Ekino over the last few years, sort of developing my own framework for how you solve those problems, how you solve that kind of omnichannel and data transformation challenge.
Amazing. And is that something you can elaborate on, or is it a highly guarded secret?
Well, no. So it's hard for me to be specific, I guess, about individual clients, but there are probably 5, 6, 7, 8 different kind of components to solve this problem. So the first is having a really, really clear vision, understanding the sort of end experience that you're trying to get to from a customer experience perspective, but also from an internal stakeholder perspective, right? So an example of what that might be like is if we go back to what I talked about earlier, which was the way that brands used to work in kind of the traditional calendar plan of saying, right, in January we're going to do this activity, and in March we've got this big campaign, we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this, and it'll lead up to Christmas, and that's very much how things used to work historically, and still work in many organizations from a marketing standpoint. And really, we're going to move to a world where the way that brands interact with consumers or customers becomes much more like a conversation, right? So in any given conversation between two people, you've got topics that you want to cover off, you've got objectives, things that you're trying to achieve, and you both kind of steer that conversation together. And ultimately, that is where customer experience is going to go, that it becomes more like a natural conversation where each side is kind of responding to each other's needs. The difference and the added complexity between a conversation between two people and omnichannel marketing is that you have to do that simultaneously across lots of different channels, right? So it's like, okay, we're having a two-way conversation, but 1 minute it's via Teams, the other bit it's text, then it's over the phone, then it's a bit of advertising. And so that's a really big challenge. So the vision of what that looks like is really, really important. Related to that is then the business case that goes with that. And within organizations, there's always, within the biggest organizations, there's always a tension between selling in the big vision and demonstrating incremental improvements that will drive real revenue, right? And the trouble is that if you just focus on the big vision, you can end up on this big wild goose chase that goes years and years and years and sinks tons and tons of money without delivering anything. And maybe it gets cancelled part of the way along. Of course, if you only focus on your short-term incremental returns, it's a bit like, I guess, building a nuclear submarine, right? You can't build a nuclear submarine just by iterating on little pieces. You have to have an idea of what the end state looks like and how all of the different pieces fit together. So that vision piece is really important, as is the business case, and finding a way to achieve things in iterative stages, but do so in a way which is fully aligned with that long-term vision. Then the next bit is around the tech stack and making the right decisions there, and that involves looking at all of the legacy systems that you have in place, and then the gaps in that technology, and then how that aligns with the existing IT roadmap. There's a whole piece around data platforms. Data in many ways is a lot of the fuel for this. So how you build the right data platforms, how you abstract the data, how you hold it in the right place, and how you have that data set up that you can iterate on it very quickly a lot of organizations, build their data structures around individual use cases, but don't necessarily have it in a way that allows them to kind of have a base capability on there that they can iterate on very quickly. So that's one of the key things that we look at with our clients. There's then a people side around your organizational silos, your power structures, your corporate inertia, how your annual budgeting works, how your departmental priorities work. And there's a really important side around, first of all, getting everyone on board with the vision and ensuring that it can meet their own objectives within their own department, but also kind of being the glue that can work with those different individuals. The world has become so complicated that we have lots of subject matter experts, but the most challenging problems are solved by bringing together very different disciplines. And so there's a lot of work we do around that, and there's a lot of people in the team in Ekino who are kind of hybrids who can cross lots of different disciplines and understand things from other people's perspectives, different people's perspectives. And that's really important as well. And so it's really by taking all of those together, putting them into a clear framework, and then taking everyone along the journey with you that allows you to start to achieve this transformative change over time.
Wow, fantastic! I mean, what a thorough framework that is, indeed. I wasn't expecting something quite so impressive, but yeah, good work. I just want to go back to one of the points you made a little bit earlier on about technology, and I guess within my world, being in the data science and AI recruitment world, one of the things I am always fascinated about is how, and I think it relates very closely to customer experience, about how AI is creeping into our daily lives more and more, and how it's playing an integral part really in how we interact with businesses, and certainly around customer experience and branding as well. And again, just thinking back to this example of changing my broadband provider, there were times when I just wanted to speak to a person. I just wanted to have that sort of relationship, that kind of interaction with an individual that could genuinely help me. Where there were times when actually throughout the process I was directed to an automated, piece of technology that also kind of solved the problem. And I guess it's quite an interesting situation within customer experience about what level do you allow AI to play to expedite a process and to kind of automate a situation, versus that care and attention that at the moment anyway feels like it can only come from an actual person, and a kind of representative for that business. So what role do you see AI playing within customer experience, and how do you feel that role is kind of changing at the moment?
Well, I think first of all, to deal with your point around the need to speak to a person, I think all of us feel like, when we're, especially when they're things that are, really important to our lives, right? We need to have that person on the end of the phone that we can speak to. And of course, there's an inherent tension there with, businesses that want to try and lower the cost of servicing the customer as far as possible. But, in many ways, perhaps not for everything, I'm not going to say in every kind of situation, but normally the fact that we need to be able to have that person on the end of the phone for a lot of different products is really about a failure to do something, right? If you take your mobile phone, and if you said, gosh, to use my mobile phone, I need to be able to have someone I can speak to. If this bit doesn't work, I can't get that bit to work. And the reality is phones are really highly optimized devices. It's not like you need to go and call someone to go and use a function on your phone, because they've optimized, tested across large groups of people and developed for a long time. The problem is in a lot of product interactions, it becomes quite complicated, right? So, if you're, think of a great example off the top of my head, but you might have a complex remortgaging process or something like that, and you need to be able to speak to a financial advisor to guide you through that process, right? And if you're just doing it on a system, then you may not get the outcome that you want. So I guess if AI has started to evolve to start to chip away at that challenge and deal with some of the sort of easier interactions, and many times it falls short at the moment. But I think if you take a step back and you look at what's happening over a long period of time, and if you think about it from a marketing perspective, maybe a customer experience perspective as well, is that, you go back 40 years and marketeers were individuals that would write an ad, and that ad might be seen by 10, 20, 30, 40 million people, right? So that's like one person with no information, or a small group of people with very little information that's kind of building that marketing message. And we're in the process of transitioning to a world where if you have 1 million customers, an AI will be able to operate like 1 million individual marketeers, each dealing with one customer on their own and using all of the data from that interaction with the customer, and also wider industry, market, other data across the internet in order to shape that experience. And that's really the transition that we're seeing now. And it's really, really important for companies to try and get ahead of that curve so that they've got the competitive advantage. I don't personally believe that we will reach the point where you can just shove a load of unstructured data and half-working systems and maybe departments with different politics and different priorities and just say to an AI, can you just go and make that work to me, and I'm going to go off to the pub. I don't think we're necessarily going to get to that feature. I think in order to get the most out of AI, you need to have the right structure, vision, frameworks to get your data in a tidy and organized place, for example, so you can then get the most out of that. But it's going to be fascinating to see how this changes, how it changes what organizations do, what departments do, what consultancies do, what marketing agencies do. It's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm absolutely fascinated by it, and I think you're right. It's that balance, isn't it? And it's finding that where does that balance sort of sit? And AI really, I don't think is there to replace human interaction, but sort of augment it in many ways. Yeah. And I think it is a very interesting world we are approaching. Absolutely. But I think it's a very apt point that you made there about actually, in reality, often the need to speak to somebody actually is amplified when the technology falls short. Yeah. Often, if the technology process is a smooth and efficient one, I guess that's the brand is reflected positively as a result of that. And like I say, at various points throughout the stage, you might have human interaction, but it isn't required at every stage if the technology is working effectively. And I guess AI in lots of areas, we've got quite a lot of evolving to do till we get to that stage. But no, it'd be very interesting to see when we do. So
I think as well, if you look at this wider kind of topic of customer experience, digital and data transformation, the prizes for organizations are absolutely enormous. Yeah. From building better customer experiences, which means more customer loyalty. So you don't have to spend as much acquiring customers. You don't have to spend as much servicing customers. You can get higher sales. You can get cost savings, both from your spending on marketing, from your overall spending on tech platforms, from the number of individuals and departments that are required to service the customer. You can get huge strategic data insights that allow you to make new strategic decisions as an organization and become much more effective in terms of your long-term profitability. And you can also rapidly increase the pace of learning, optimization, iteration within the business. So, although these things are hard, if you get them right, benefits are absolutely huge. And I think that it's worth keeping in mind, I guess.
100%. And that's where we need people like yourself, Ben. But no, genuinely, I'm absolutely fantastic conversation. Thank you very much, and some really interesting insights shared there. And I like to kind of wrap up every podcast, Ben, by not necessarily a data specific question or even a marketing specific question, really, but if you could, do you have a favorite piece of advice or just share one piece of information with your fellow humans? Is there anything that kind of springs to mind that's a rule of thumb for you in your daily modus operandi?
So you didn't give me any time to prep for this question, so I'm thinking of this one on the fly. So I don't know, maybe it won't be my best answer, but I think in business and in life, you need to focus on the short term, the medium term, and the long term at the same time, right? You can't just do one of those things. You need to do all three at the same time and figure out how do they line up so you can try and deliver on as many of those things as possible. And it's always a balancing act, but ideally those things shouldn't become mutually exclusive. And often, with a lot of businesses that I work with, it feels like the short, the medium, and the long-term planning are all fighting for each other. They're all fighting for resources, right? And often it's short-termism that wins.
Yeah.
Unless a company is doing really, really well and making tons of money and they feel like they've got the luxury to focus on long term, it normally switches back to the short term. But that's ultimately self-defeating. And it means, especially in terms of these really big organizations that have huge complexity, that it only takes a new company as an upstart to come in, completely change the model, and to upset the whole industry, right? So Amazon have done that very successfully. You're starting to see the same in financial services, where you have these organizations with huge legacies of systems. Yeah, they've got lots of money, but the systems and the processes and the people and the departments and all of that make it really, really hard to solve these challenges. And you've had, high-profile banks that have major outages. That means that customers haven't been able to access their banking or make payments or receive money, or all of these kind of things. So it's really, really important to yes, make money, prove the value, achieve things in the short term, but it needs to be along the path to a well laid out medium and longer term plan, so that everything can be achieved over that longer term.
Yeah, I totally agree. And considering I didn't give you any time to prepare for that, that was a fantastic answer. So Ben, again, nothing remains but to say thank you very much for your time, and I really found it very interesting and some really useful perspectives shared. So yeah, look forward to a very bright future ahead, and look forward to keeping in touch and seeing where this journey takes you.
Thank you, Guy.
Take care. Speak to you soon.